Good evening, wrestling fans. It is Kevin, and it is the Two Bros Wrestling Show. Thank you for joining. We are in WrestleMania week. It is official. Over the next 7 days, we are at the center of the wrestling world, and we have so much to cover. In fact, we have a whole week's worth of coverage coming your way. As we started really last week presenting our WrestleMania week preview that is all things non WWE related. So, as you get ready to enter this wrestling week, if you didn't see last week's show and you want to know all of the various events that are upcoming for WrestleMania week that are not put on by WWE, definitely check out last week's show. And then also the Hall of Fame that we have coming up this Friday night. Doug and I are going to preview that in a special show on Thursday. But tonight's main event topic is all about the big weekend itself. And that is WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, who are going to be participating, who we think will win, and what matches we're most excited about. Before we get any further into tonight's show, I wanted to just pull up our calendar to show you exactly how the Two Bros Wrestling Show is celebrating WrestleMania week. We hope that you will join us throughout the week. Make us part of your wrestling programming for the week ahead and WrestleMania Hollywood. We have 4 shows coming at you this week, beginning with our WrestleMania preview that we have going on tonight. And there you see that we will be live after the pay-per-views, both Saturday night as well as on Sunday night. So with so much to get through this week, let's go ahead and what do you say? Let's have a little opening bell action. Let's start with some news before we get into WrestleMania. And before we get into WWE land and all the WrestleMania talk, why don't we start with another promotion? Let's talk Impact Wrestling. And Impact Wrestling, when it rains, it pours. Impact has had a rough couple of weeks. If you've not heard, Mickie James has been pulled from her Knockouts Championship defense at Sacrifice due to injury. And that came on Thursday. And then Friday, we get the news that Josh Alexander is going to have to relinquish his Impact World Championship due to a more serious injury, that being of his tricep, which he has torn. He underwent successful surgery on Friday, and unfortunately, this means though that his impressive 335-day run as your champion at Impact is now over. That makes Alexander the longest reigning title holder of the Impact era. And where this gets really unfortunate for, well, obviously it's unfortunate for wrestling fans as well as for Josh Alexander, but Impact is going to have to do a lot of scrambling and shuffling because over the next few weeks, Alexander was going to have a lot of marquee matches, including his own match at Sacrifice, as well as a interpromotional contest that we previewed last week that's taking place during WrestleMania week as part of that co-promoted show between Impact and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And unfortunately, none of those matches will now be able to happen. Best wishes to both Mickie and to Josh Alexander, and congratulations, Josh Alexander, for what an impressive run and Impact World Champion you made. If those of you out there who aren't familiar with Alexander's work because you only watch AEW or in WWE, definitely check out all that he has brought to the Impact brand and to that World Championship over the last year. In other health-related news, Alexa Bliss revealed this week that one of the reasons we've not seen her is that she is actually recovering from cancer surgery. Obviously, Little Miss Bliss has not been on our TV screens and not been part of the WrestleMania build-up. And one of the reasons being something she announced this week on her Instagram, and that is that she has been battling a form of skin cancer. She underwent successful surgery for basal cell sarcoma and took to Instagram to talk about this, as well as to warn others, particularly young people, that she herself wished she could go back and tell the younger version of Lexi that avoid those tanning beds. And so all best wishes to Little Miss Bliss. We love you here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. We can't wait to have you back on our TV screens. Moving on, regardless of what happens next Sunday night, the WWE is expecting that the Universal Championship will be split into two titles soon. Fans, apparently, you can expect this to happen before SummerSlam. This is amidst reports that Triple H's original intention was to have two world titles by now. However, those plans were thrown into a bit of disarray when The Rock was not able to participate in WrestleMania 39. Triple H reportedly considers this the final mess that he needs to clean up from the previous creative team that he sort of inherited, because he's untangled most things. He just was not able to untangle the fact that the world titles were combined here before Mania, especially since those plans that he originally had to do so were contingent on The Rock's participation in WrestleMania. And who knows what that might mean had The Rock been able to participate. Could we have got a Sammy world title reign after all? Would that have been maybe one way they could have gone with it? Would Cody Rhodes have been factored into a different contest and maybe challenging a Sami Zayn as opposed to using his Royal Rumble match victory to take on Roman Reigns? We'll never know exactly what was originally planned. And what we do know is that Triple H is going to get through Mania, get through this ending, and however it goes, whether it goes Roman's way, whether it goes Cody Rhodes' way, there will be further storylines booking down the road to eventually split the Universal Championship back into the WWE and Universal title instead of the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship, or whatever they call it, in that unified belt. Doug and I have obviously disagreed on this issue on this show publicly. If you've watched, and Doug was fine for wanting these titles split. I really like the fact that we have one universe. Let's have one Universal Champion. Actually, let's just call it a World Champion, because Universal Champion has always sounded pretty dumb to my ears. But a World Champion that goes back and forth between both brands. I've really liked that about Roman Reigns. I didn't like the fact that we had two titles, but I guess if we're going to do it, let's just go ahead and do it, and hope that means that let's keep the brands separate. Let's not have all this back and forth on Raw and SmackDown. There's just so much talent, and too little of it gets featured on a weekly basis. It would be more beneficial to all involved, and to have more screen time for some people, if we can not have segments that need to be on both Raw and then on SmackDown as well. So we'll see how it goes, but expect those titles to be separate again in the very near future. Fans, earlier this week, it was announced and actually broke by Variety that we have our latest inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame, and that is probably not anybody you were expecting. I was going to do a drum roll here, but you've heard by now. It is Andy Kaufman. He is going to be inducted, of course, into I'm presuming the celebrity wing. I think that's been mentioned, but, Andy did have his fair share of matches, at least over a short period of time. That's something we'll definitely be getting more into when we have our special Thursday broadcast. Again, that Thursday broadcast is, if you're watching live, obviously we'll have it here on demand on the channel for everyone to watch afterwards. But come Thursday, we'll be live talking about all of the Hall of Fame inductees of the class of 2023, sharing our favorite moments, our favorite matches, whether or not we think they are a worthy addition. As we mentioned last week, WWE has got a little behind, it seems, this year in naming Hall of Fame nominees. In fact, this is only our third following Great Muta and, of course, Rey Mysterio. The word is that WWE hopes this class will be 4 to 5 members long. And if that report ends up being the truth, that means this week you can expect we will get our final or maybe our 2 final nominees. So we're going to wait till we have all the nominees solidified. And Thursday, the night before the Hall of Fame, we are going to go and give you our analysis, including our analysis of what we think about the latest addition of Andy Kaufman to the class. In our next story, Masha Slamovich. If you are not familiar with Masha Slamovich, she is the new Game Changer Wrestling World Champion. You heard that correctly. The Impact Knockout, Masha Slamovich, and obviously an independent wrestling standout. If you are a fan of the independents, you know Masha. She is not yet been tasting gold in Impact in that women's division, and yet this past weekend she went into Game Changer Wrestling and beat, of all people, King of the Death match, Nick freaking Cage, for the GCW World Championship. The 24-year-old Russian has held many titles on the independents, but obviously nothing is going to raise her profile quite like winning a recognized world championship in the world of independents. In fact, Game Changer Wrestling, probably the largest independent wrestling promotion out there right now. And Nick Cage is a high-profile individual who himself had won that very same GCW title from none other than Jon Moxley. And so here she is, wrestling intergender and beating a legit tough guy like Nick in a high-profile match. So definitely going to raise her profile and maybe get the attention of the big two. It's a bit surprising that she hasn't been snatched up yet. Her time is coming. Speaking of folks whose time may be coming, the Interview Queen is now a free agent and available to sign with either AEW or WWE if they're interested. If you don't know the Interview Queen, that is one Alicia Atout. She has been granted her release from MLW, and she, at one point in time, did work with AEW and briefly with Impact as well, but her biggest claim to fame thus far in the wrestling world has been the last 3 years, where she has worked as a backstage interviewer for MLW, as well as ended up evolving into a in front of the camera character, where she was part of the storylines, turned heel along with her boyfriend Richard Holiday. Outside of the world of wrestling, though, she is known as the Interview Queen, not just for her wrestling prowess and podcast and interviews. She's also very involved in the music world, where she does, also acts as a host and an interviewer. And so if she doesn't catch on, I guess, with AEW or WWE, this doesn't mean that Alicia does not have plenty to keep her busy outside of the world of professional wrestling. But whatever she does, big fan. I'm going to miss her in MLW, but best of luck to Alicia. Finally, in tonight's news, we have some Bad Bunny news. So Bad Bunny is not just a former WrestleMania competitor. He's not only a downloadable character in the new WWE 23 edition of their video game. He's also not just the recently announced host for Backlash, which takes place in May. That's the first pay-per-view in Puerto Rico in 18 years, I think it was. But no, Bad Bunny is also now defended. He's being sued by his ex for apparently using a voice memo that she recorded for him in his music. Carliz de la Cruz Hernandez claims that in 2015, prior to her split with Bunny and before his rise to international fame, that she had recorded the phrase "Bad Bunny, baby" on her phone. And Bunny would later use this voice memo in 2 big hits, and she is supposedly seeking $40 million in damages. So hopefully McMahon paid Bad Bunny well for that WrestleMania payoff a few years ago, because he may be needing it. And with that, fans, we are going to turn away from the news into our main event topic. We're previewing WrestleMania, both nights 1 and nights 2. We are just going to go from the matches that we think are, I hate to say least important. Is there such a thing as a least important match in WrestleMania? I think not. We're going to go from what I think will be some of the undercard matches and then work our way up to some of our main events. As you may have noticed, by the time we've gone through the news here, you've probably noticed that there's only one bro in front of you, and that is because Doug is on WrestleMania assignment. That's right, fans. We sent him out to cover Bray Wyatt versus Bobby Lashley, and Doug's disappeared, not returned. So I'm starting to get a little worried about Doug and that match. But yeah, let's just elephant in the room. Bray Wyatt versus Lashley is technically not canceled, but it is also not being promoted. If you have noticed that the last you saw of Bray on your TV screens was the Muscle Man dance vignette that he did there with Bobby Lashley viewing on the Titantron, that was the last that anyone has on air talked about Bobby Lashley versus Bray Wyatt. It's been hush hush, I guess, because they don't want to really reveal the true story that's going on here. Reportedly, it is an injury to Wyatt and not anything wrong with Lashley. It's reportedly on the Wyatt end. So will we get a Bray Wyatt Bobby Lashley match? Right now, all indication is no. That match is very likely off, but they have yet to officially cancel it just because they want to hold open the possibility that this could, in fact, still happen. If it does happen, how do we see it shaking out? I'm just going to go ahead and say that because of Wyatt's injury, that if it does happen, there is probably going to be not much of a contest there. They will probably try to protect him and work him through a match that doesn't require him to do so much. A little easier to do with the Bray Wyatt character just because he is all mystical, hocus pocus, smoke and mirrors, which probably means, and gosh, think back to that horrible contest he had with, a few years ago with AJ, and it's, hopefully we don't go that route again, but I'm going to say Bray wins in a way that doesn't really make Lashley look weaker as a wrestler, but just duped somehow from the mystical and magical. But I don't know that this match will even happen at all. And all indications right now are that match is officially on as far as fans go, but behind the scenes, no one is expecting Wyatt to be ready. We'll keep you informed, obviously, as we move throughout the week here on our channels and on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And with that, let's talk about the matches that will be happening. First off, let's talk Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus the Street Profits versus Alpha Academy versus the Viking Raiders. So what we have here is the men's WrestleMania Showcase, a fatal four-way tag team match. We'll preview the female edition here in a second. This is essentially this year's version of the let's get some folks a payday and get as many people on the card as we can. As we reported here recently, Triple H apparently made it a sort of an edict that he wanted to have a shorter WrestleMania card without as many matches this time around. And in order to accomplish that, he's done a great job with the booking. But I guess at the end of the day, there still was some need to try to get more individuals on the card. And this is the way to keep the card relatively short in terms of matches, but also get a bunch of people all in one match. This, if it ends up being a preview match, which is something that WWE sort of stopped doing, it would not surprise me if they did insert this, though, being WrestleMania, if they did not insert this into the preview of WrestleMania that will air right beforehand. As far as how it goes, there's no reason to think that the Street Profits are not going to be front and center here. However, this could be a storyline match. Doug and I have talked about the fact that the Street Profits, who weren't looking like they had a whole lot to do coming in to WrestleMania weekend, are now a part of this. but this could be a way to actually break up Dawkins and Montez Ford. So I think that they take the fall and they have a falling out. And as far as who goes over here, um, let's say Alpha Academy. There's some storyline around Otis right now. He and Chad Gable and the Maximum Male models. Maybe not a front and center feud, but it's definitely something that they're giving a lot of comedic airtime to. Having them win this in a way that maybe furthers tensions between Chad and Otis would be another way to go as well. But definitely, this is a match that is going to be on the lower end of the card wherever it takes place. And the same can be said for the women's match. Again, nothing against the talented women involved in this match. There's just not a lot in the way of high stakes for this. As of yet, they have yet to announce stipulations for these fatal four-way tag matches. Wouldn't be surprising, and honestly would make a lot of sense if they would just come out and say that the winners of these matches get future tag team championships so that there's something on the line. Knowing that might be where they end up going with this, I say that predicts, for me anyways, our next the winners of the women's fatal four-way, because you have one team yet to be decided, but you also officially have Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, Natalya and Shotzi, and then Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Obviously, Rousey, as a former WrestleMania main eventer, she needs to be front and center here. She and Baszler, while they have not been teaming together long, just the shoot UFC backgrounds of both women make them instant threats in honestly a not very strong tag team division. I think they would make excellent tag team champions to build a division around, if that's what you want to do with Rousey. And it does appear that Rousey herself is wanting to do this at this point in time in her career. So let's go ahead and say that Rousey and Shayna Baszler win this, and that prior to this match taking place, regardless of who else they throw in as the other participant before this match takes place, they're going to say that the winner of this match ends up with a women's tag team championship match down the line. With those two matches, which I think are kind of the filler matches, sorry, gang, but if you're fans of any of these people, I am too. Those are the filler matches. Let's get into more substantial contests, and let's start with one that we know is going to be taking place on Saturday night right now. On Saturday night, we know that WrestleMania weekend festivities, the pay-per-view itself, is going to begin with Austin Theory defending his United States Championship against John Cena. John Cena is a legend. Austin Theory is the future. And not just because Vince McMahon at one point thought Austin Theory is the future. The dude is legit, the real deal. Going to be in our main event scene for a long time in WWE, barring any injuries. However, I don't think he's getting this win. And that's despite the fact that it is for the title. I think John Cena is going to walk away. You're not United States champion. I don't think he'll hold the title long. But I think that Cena comes back and doesn't lose at WrestleMania. Cena comes back, wins the title. Austin Theory gets to say he wrestled John Cena at WrestleMania. And then, let's say, Backlash, give it a month of John Cena on television, get some intrigue going for that show in Puerto Rico in May, and then maybe Austin Theory takes it back then. But I'm saying that we get a really short-term, feel-good, returning legend championship reign a la John Cena here, and Austin Theory gets a good match out of the aging Cena and further raises his profile in the wrestling world for the next thing. We mentioned earlier about the women's tag team championships and the fact that it would be great if that four-way ends up leading to a future title match for someone. The women's tag team division, as I again alluded to, is not extremely strong, and here's the evidence of it. Something else we know is taking place on Saturday night is that Trish Stratus is teaming up with the tag team champions, Lita and Becky Lynch, against Damage Control. So the women's tag team championship is not even important enough to be defended on the biggest show of the year. That says everything you need to know right now about the state of the women's tag division. Not that Lita and Becky could not be strong champions. Lita is a legend, obviously, so is Trish Stratus, but we're definitely going for the return legend angle in WrestleMania. Get as many famous and popular faces on the show as you can. And that is taking precedence over the tag titles themselves, which is why they made the switch in the first place not so long ago to Lita and Becky, so that we could work our way into this scenario where really the tag team championships themselves are playing second fiddle to the storyline, which is why there is no reason to think that the popular returning legends that are Trish and Lita will not also go over here along with Becky Lynch. No titles at stake. There's nothing, that can be lost here by having the feel good outcome, and that is everyone wanting to see the legends win. Just like John Cena is a returning legend who's going to win, you can almost guarantee that Trish and Lita in this instance have even more reason to win, since there's no titles at stake. And then down the line, we can have a break off here where, like, Bailey and goes to the outside and coaches Dakota Kai and Io Sky in a tag match where they actually take those titles from Lita and Becky Lynch. Or, and this is, in my mind, even a more likely scenario, is that Damage Control not only does the job here, but gets them out of the World Tag Team title picture as Lita and Becky Lynch move on to take on Shayna and Ronda Rousey down the line, which is probably more of a match that we have not seen too much already, not as overexposed, I guess, as Damage Control versus Becky Lynch and Lita. And truly, Lita and Trish are just around for the short term, and Becky needs to go back to the singles division anyway. So that booking makes a lot of sense to me. Let's see what happens and where they go with it. Got one more match that I'm going to go ahead and talk about, even though this is going to be higher on the card, I know, but this is a definite Saturday contest, and that is Seth freaking Rollins versus Logan Paul in a singles match. And this is just pride at stake, but it is also it will be further proof to all the folks that hate, and I hate just as much, Logan Paul's persona. But it's hard to have a heel these days that doesn't get cheered, and Logan Paul is a heel that is truly detestable, that doesn't have any redeeming qualities that make anyone want to cheer him. One thing he is, though, is incredibly athletic and talented, as he has proved now several times over. So while I would in some ways like to see this contest be between, Seth and somebody on the permanent roster, or Seth wrestling for a championship or something with more meaning, I have no doubt that Seth versus Logan Paul could potentially tear the house down and be a weekend, a stealer of some more higher profile matches. I would say that that is completely possible with these two. Obviously, Logan Paul had a really memorable contest with Roman Reigns that was way better than most people expected, and I expect that Rollins, who's an even better worker than Reigns, will get the same out of Logan Paul, particularly on the big stage that is WrestleMania. As far as who's going to win, who do you all think? Let us know in the comments here if you disagree with me, but I got to say that you just don't bet against celebrities at WrestleMania. They tend to win, even though he's the heel, even though Seth Rollins needs a victory. If Logan Paul cheats, rather, that is, to beat Seth Rollins, I don't think Seth Rollins loses anything, and not losing fairly. I don't think that Logan Paul is going to beat him fairly, but I do think that Logan Paul will win in a way that might prompt a rematch at Backlash. Let's see. And with that, those are the three matches that we know for certain are happening on Saturday night. We have one that we know for certain is happening on Sunday night, and I'm saving that one until very last because you all know what that one is. So let's talk about the matches that are, as of yet, unassigned. I'm also going to start with one that I'm not necessarily looking forward to, but that is one we have talked about on the show as being a big botch in our mind, and that is the waste of bringing Brock Lesnar to WrestleMania only to put him against Omos. Brock Lesnar is a main eventer. And while you can't be in the actual main event at every WrestleMania, you do need a higher profile match than Omos. If you've not been following the wrestling news, not been following us reporting here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, this match is what it is because they rushed the Bobby Lashley match in order. I'm sorry, they rushed the Lesnar Bobby Lashley match at the last pay per view so that they could get it out of the way and move to one of those two men taking on Bray Wyatt. And now that I'm sure they wish they hadn't have done that and then saved that for Mania because reportedly Lashley is getting Wyatt, if in fact Wyatt wrestles, only because Lesnar refused to wrestle Bray Wyatt. And at the same token, before that, WWE tried really hard to get a Stone Cold Steve Austin appearance at WrestleMania to wrestle in a dream match that we've not seen against Brock Lesnar. And Stone Cold said no to that. So Stone Cold says no to Lesnar. Lesnar says no to Wyatt. Wyatt ends up facing Lashley, except Wyatt is now injured and no one may be facing Lashley at WrestleMania. So you end up with a mess where no one got the matches that they wanted. And we as fans are definitely not getting what we wanted when we have one of the worst workers in WWE, Omos, versus Lesnar, just so that Lesnar at least ends up on the card. I wouldn't mind if they did a pivot this week and something happens to Omos and Lashley ends up back in this picture. I know they had an uninspiring match at the last pay-per-view because of the cheap cop-out finish. I think that means that we can maybe squeeze a little more juice out of Lashley versus Lesnar. And it's certainly, even if we've seen it, even if we didn't like the last couple of iterations of it, or particularly the outcomes of it, I think we can all agree. And again, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, but I think we all can agree that we still would rather get that last bit of juice squeezed out of that contest than to have to watch Brock Lesnar versus Omos. If it does happen, it's going to be short. I think that goes without saying. You could expect some signature moves. You could expect Omos using his size to impress and intimidate, but very, very quickly, we're going to get Lesnar showing some superhuman strength that requires a F5 of the 7 foot plus, whatever he is, Omos, and then a quick victory by Brock Lesnar. Lesnar absolutely needs this victory. He does not need a defeat. After all, he's already done for the company and taking so many losses over the last couple of years. You got to protect Lesnar a little bit, and hopefully that is the way this one goes down. And it is kept mercifully short. We have Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio. This one is now official. Obviously, this one has been brewing for months, and we finally got confirmation that we knew would come, where all the goading that Rey Mysterio has done, that Dominic has done of his father to try to get his father to come and fight him at WrestleMania. Rey, of course, I am not going to strike you, son. I am not going to do this. Well, all you have to do eventually is push Rey one step too far. And that one step too far is whether you're his son or not. Do not disrespect his daughter. Do not disrespect your mother. And so Rey Mysterio is going to take Prison Dom to the woodshed at WrestleMania. And what it has, whatever you think of Dominic at this stage of his career, or whatever you even think of Rey in the waning days of his career at this stage, this has been incredibly entertaining. Dom has been legitimately annoying. The whole 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it was he was at the county jail and holding, turning into all of his prison stories is just absolutely one of the funniest and best storylines going in WWE that does not involve a championship, and been very entertaining. But as with all good chicken heels, which is what Dominic has been, a non-tough, you got to have your comeuppance. And the legendary Rey Mysterio the day after his, or 2 days, depending on when they book this, but right on the heels of his Hall of Fame induction, there's every reason to think that Rey puts this feather in his cap. Who knows how many more WrestleMania matches he has? Dom obviously will have more than a few if he keeps going at the pace he's currently going in his development. But in this instance, Dad, sometimes you have to, spoil the rod. Spare the rod, spoil the child? Well, we're going to get maybe not a rod, but definitely going to get a 619 to Dominic. And if his sister or his mother get involved, also do not be surprised. Rhea Ripley, not Dominic's mom, but Mommy, is going to be otherwise occupied with her big world title match. So Dom's not going to have the protection he normally has to talk tough and then hide. And Rey is going to take it out on him. But should be a good match. And obviously, it's got to be a thrill personally for the Mysterios to be able to wrestle with each other at WrestleMania. Edge versus Finn Balor. Let's go ahead and talk another of the Judgment Day members, and that is Finn Balor taking on the founder of Judgment Day, Edge. I know last week Doug had mentioned that, haven't we seen this happen? Having this match happened several times already. And while Edge has definitely been involved with trying to get his retribution on Judgment Day, it has dragged. And so this is probably needs to be the blow off, but I am fine with it because of the two men involved. And it being only two men involved and not the full Judgment Day. At this point, Edge has pretty much put down everyone else, but there's still the de facto leader of Judgment Day, that is Finn Balor, at least on the male side. In my opinion, Rhea Ripley has shown herself as the leader of Judgment Day, but that's a preview for later on in this broadcast. No spoilers there. But as far as Edge versus Finn Balor goes, you have Finn, Edge in a Hell in a Cell, which makes it have to be the final. And also a likely show stealer because both these men are going to be able to work that Hell in a Cell gimmick in a way that probably is going to make it hard for anything that comes after them to beat and compete with the spectacle that is Hell in a Cell. I do expect that Judgment Day is going to go over here, and Judgment Day is obviously an ongoing concern, whereas Edge is an occasional wrestler. I think we're going to see a lot of feel-good stories coming out of WrestleMania. We usually do, even once they split it to 2 nights, try to help mitigate the fact that the good guys can't win every contest. I think this is an instance where the good guy can afford to lose because we are going to have so many others who win. And Finn Balor obviously is going to need to lead the Judgment Day in a way that he has some authority to do so by finally putting Edge down, letting Edge probably take a break for a little while, because even if Edge were to win here and you say that Edge finally needs to get his comeuppance, what else is there for Edge to do other than to, try to work a program into a title match with someone at some point? I think Edge is probably going to take a little break. And after a serious beatdown by Finn Balor in Hell in a Cell. And speaking of serious beatdowns, we are going to have what I am going to say right now is the hardest hitting contest that will take place WrestleMania weekend. And that is the triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship. Champion Gunther versus Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre. Gunther has elevated the Intercontinental Championship, no doubt about it. Triple H, to his credit, his booking style is to make the titles mean something by making the champions hold on to those titles for a period of time that makes the title seem more important. It makes not only the champion more important, but whoever eventually enthrones that champion also instantly elevated. This is a great example. Gunther, at least in the modern era, is getting into that range of historic title reigns for the Intercontinental Championship. I think we reported here a couple weeks ago that it's something like the longest reigning champion in 15, 20 years, something along those lines. We have multiple factors at play when you have these triple threats where someone can take a loss and lose a title without actually being the one pinned. By the same token, the having a multi-person match will allow someone to take a pinfall in a way that is honestly not, I shouldn't say cheap, because I don't think there'll be anything cheap about the way that these two men hit around on each other. I do believe, though, that the right move here would be to keep the title on Gunther and then have him eventually lose it to one of either Sheamus or Drew McIntyre or yet another challenger. I don't like a champion losing his title at in a triple threat. I think that Gunther will go over here, and then maybe Sheamus and Drew break off into, instead of we're friends and tag team partners who like each other, but are going to do everything we can to every man for himself in this Intercontinental title situation. I think the every man for himself will also do something that makes Sheamus the more obvious heel in this scenario. He and Drew are going to have a friendship problem come out of one or the other, costing the other one this match to Gunther. So Gunther goes over. Sheamus and Drew come out of Mania with one as a heel and one as a face, and their tag team a thing of the past that they enter into a feud against each other. Let's see if my booking holds correct on that one. Moving on, we have Bianca Belair defending the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka. You can bet that that there being two women's titles at stake, that they put these on separate nights. I'm going to guess that this one goes on Sunday night, because I believe the other women's match is your likely headliner for Saturday. We'll get to that in a moment. But Bianca versus Asuka, I'm going to say likely for Sunday. And while I've truly enjoyed the Empress of Tomorrow getting rehabbed and getting a more serious push, and her path to Bianca Belair has been enjoyable to watch, I don't know at this stage in her career if it makes a whole lot of sense to have Asuka take out your still young, still very, very promising champion in Bianca Belair. I think there are other opponents that Bianca can expect to face, and therefore I think that Bianca is going to retain that title in one of those feel-good moments I was referencing earlier, where I think we're going to see a lot of faces come out on top, just because it's WrestleMania and the end in some ways of your wrestling season, as WWE tends to reset things on beginning with the Raw thereafter. And so I think the end of this story is a happy one for fans, happy one for Bianca Belair. But I do expect a good contest with Asuka, and hopefully they don't just forget about her and they keep the heat on that character and give Asuka something interesting to do, and don't just let her fade back into the background. The Usos, Jay and Jimmy, take on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. This one is for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. Now, if the word is that we're going to be eventually, in not too distant future, breaking the world title into a Universal and WWE Championship, I would very much expect the same thing is going to happen with the tag team division. But for now, we have unified tag team champions in the Usos against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It is, I don't even know. I was going to say it's arguable, but I don't know how. I'd like to hear that argument actually from someone else, that this isn't really the storyline that most fans, I think, have been the most invested in, and that is Sammy against the Bloodline. Now, I think most fans would have liked to have seen that in a world title run for Sami Zayn by taking out Roman Reigns. But I think one pillar of the Bloodline platform falls with the Usos losing their tag team championships to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Kevin and Sami have been doing exemplary work, and Sami has done a great job accepting a slight demotion from the main event and to the secondary storyline. But I think that to some people, this is still the primary storyline, and that is Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. And I think that this is a likely Saturday night contest, so that when the bloodline goes down 0-1, that's one more thing now in the back of Roman Reigns' head for Sunday, that okay, maybe my bloodline is falling apart. My cousins here have already let me down. And I think that this is the consolation prize for Sammy. It didn't get done that he took out Roman in a one-on-one for the world championship, but he is in Roman's head, and he is going to help destroy Roman's bloodline faction. And by doing so with his best friend, who reunited with him, and taking out Jimmy and Jay in a very long form storytelling that WWE has done here. It is time, though, to bring that story to a close, at least this most recent chapter of it, and give it a break for a bit. And that goes with Sammy and KO coming out on top as your tag team champions. Next up, the women's singles match for the SmackDown Championship, and the women's champion Charlotte Flair is going to be defending against Rhea Ripley from the Judgment Day, as well as Rhea obviously is in this contest because she won your Women's Royal Rumble in really dominant fashion back in January. And speaking of dominant, this is going to be your headline match, I think, on Saturday night. Since the men are headlining Sunday, you have to make some fairness here. I think that the Usos versus KO and Sammy could easily, you could make the argument that they should be headlining night one, since that's probably the storyline that is heads and heads above almost all others. But I do think that there is some prestige that you must give your world titles, so that the women's world title needs to absolutely headline one night if the men's world title is going to be doing so on a different night. Therefore, I do think we get Charlotte defending the belt versus Rhea Ripley on Saturday night at the very end of the night. And I think that Charlotte is going to lose that title. I think Rhea Ripley is the perfect heel to go over on WrestleMania, especially since you'll have another whole day ahead to make the fans go home happy. But I don't think they go home happy on this night if they're wanting to see Charlotte win, because Rhea Ripley, it's her time. 3 years ago, they had a match at WrestleMania that was good, but not all that it could be, just because Rhea Ripley wasn't yet as in control of her character as she is now. And honestly, she has just done so much better as a heel than she was at that point in time positioned as a face. All that said, Charlotte Flair herself is not the most natural face. So I don't know that there won't be some split in that huge stadium crowd in Los Angeles, where there will be folks rooting for the heel in this scenario, because Rhea Ripley is such a great, entertaining character. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that she has taken over from Finn Balor, and that even though she's the only female in the group, that Rhea Ripley is truly the leader of the Judgment Day faction. And Charlotte Flair has been a champ so many times over that it doesn't do her any harm at all to win it, to lose it, to move on to other things. And I think that Charlotte, even though she's not been back all that long, I think one of the reasons the title was moved over to her was to get this moment to help put over a younger talent like Rhea Ripley, who early on in her career was often compared to Charlotte Flair as a Charlotte clone. Obviously, with her punk rock look and everything she ended up going with, she did everything she could to dismiss those comparisons. But I think in the ring, you can definitely see technique and style-wise, they do have a lot in common. And therefore, I think we'll mesh really well and have an even better match than they had 3 years ago at WrestleMania, with higher stakes, a bigger crowd, and Rhea Ripley getting that moment of going over on one of the all-time greats and holding that championship belt at the end of the night on Saturday night. That takes us to the only match left, and the only match that has been made official for Sunday night. And this is the one that's going to end the entire weekend and the entire week, in fact, of huge wrestling matches. And that is Roman Reigns defending the championship, the WWE Universal Championship, in a singles match against your Royal Rumble winner, Cody Rhodes. finish the story. And that story has had some bumps along the way. Cody came back triumphantly to WWE against all odds. And after being the hottest wrestler in the business, goes down to injury and therefore has to sit back and watch Sami Zayn take over and unexpectedly get over in a way that caused issues for WWE's booking as to how we get back to Cody Rhodes and fans accepting Cody Rhodes. So how did Cody Rhodes handle all of that? Graciously. He handled it all graciously. He acknowledged, and there's no pun intended there, but he acknowledged the popularity of Sami Zayn. He did not do anything to try to dismiss or derail the popularity of Sami Zayn. He tried to support Sami publicly without looking like he was overly trying to embrace him in a way that was to transfer that face feeling that Sami was getting over onto him. And, you know, fans would have just likely rejected that because he wasn't the guy they wanted. He waited his time. He kept his character hot. He said the right things in interviews. He's had some of the best interviews of his career. I think his promos over the last month or two have been very winning and has done a lot to mitigate the Sami factor without upstaging Sami himself. And now, though, we are at the moment where Sami has, moved on to other things, and it is just he and Roman. And when it has been just he and Roman, WWE had a legit fear that fans would reject Cody as the challenger, and they have not done so. And a lot of that has to do with just how well Cody has played his role, and of course, co-credit to Paul Heyman and Roman also for making this compelling, even if it wasn't where some fans thought we were going with all of this, and maybe thought a triple threat, maybe thought Sami alone. Instead, Cody has a chance to finish his story. Is Cody the one? After all the ones who came before who did not dethrone your tribal chief, including Sami himself, can Cody be that guy? I think the answer is yes. I think that as great as Roman Reigns has been, and fans, he has been historically great, not just in the length of this reign, but in how well he has done with it. I do think the time has come for someone to end that title reign. Lesnar last year looked like a possible, threat to finally stop Roman. When that didn't happen, I knew that Roman was probably going to continue on for the majority of the year. There was no one compelling enough to arise as a challenger that seemed like they could possibly end Roman's reign until Sami Zayn. And when that didn't happen, and when the dream match of The Rock did not happen, that leaves us with Cody Rhodes. And I don't mean that as a default prize. I mean that as if not Cody, then now who? I think the time has set on a Rock return. You don't have that at any place other than WrestleMania, so you'd be talking at least another year out. I don't see Roman holding the title for another year. I don't see that Sami reinserts himself into things, at least at the immediate time after WrestleMania. I think that Cody Rhodes does exactly what he said he was going to do, and that is finish the story. I think there's a compelling narrative to be written here on Dusty Rhodes' boy coming back to WWE, where he was first rejected and first belittled and first made to do a ripoff of his brother's character, and now comes back on his own terms as Cody Rhodes, battles through injury, battles through the popularity of Sami Zayn, battles through the undefeatable Roman Reigns, and ends WrestleMania night and WrestleMania weekend on a high note for everyone by taking that title away from one of the longest reigning champions in modern history, Roman Reigns. Roman will take himself a well-deserved vacation. He doesn't do house shows anyway. He can disappear from TV for a little bit. And I don't know that we need to rush into a rematch right away. I think Roman can take some time. And if it is true what we said in our news at the beginning, that WWE is intent on splitting these titles back apart, then there's definitely time for Roman to come back, work his way into a storyline, regain one of those titles at some point over the next year in a way that you can maybe still have a match with Sammy that might mean something, or maybe if they still think it has legs and they can actually get The Rock to sign on, even though Hollywood would have been the best spot for it, they would take a Rock Reigns match anytime, anywhere they could possibly get it to go. So I think Roman will find himself back to one of those world championships, but his days as the unified WWE Universal Champion are coming to an end, and that Cody Rhodes will move on to a fresh matchup starting next month at Backlash. And with that, fans, I have just previewed on my own, without Doug here able to assist me. I have been able to preview both nights of WrestleMania. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope that you have your own opinions as to who will win and what matches you are looking forward to. Please note in the comments, let us know how we did with this preview show, what you thought of it, and what you thought of our predictions. Let us know where I am wrong and where you think that it's going to go the opposite direction. I very much want to hear that from you. And with that, let's hit our big finish and wrap this show up as we get ready to go into WrestleMania week. Fans, I want to start first with my botch of the week. It's impressive to see Bianca Belair hit her KOD on a competitor, especially when that competitor is the size of Piper Niven. But this past week on Raw, it just didn't look good. I know it's not unusual to occasionally notice that a wrestler is actually helping an opponent execute their move, but there is that suspension of belief that you want, that suspension of disbelief rather, that you want to have. And then there's what happened on Monday night, where Piper Niven, for no obvious reason, charges into the corner and steps up onto the bottom ropes, just to make sure that little extra leverage was going to work for Bianca to help put her into the KOD. There was no other reason for her to climb up onto those bottom ropes, and it looked really eye-rolling, honestly. Kind of inexplicable as to why a competitor would climb the ropes for no known reason when she was missing a move and not executing a move. So that is my botch of the week. I like both the women involved in this, but that one spot was a botch that didn't make anyone look well. On a different note, though, performer of the week. Might be the last time for a little while I'm able to do so, so I am going to say Roman Reigns, you are my performer of the week. As we head into Mania and the Tribal Chiefs' final stand, the Bloodline's final stand as well, in my mind, if my predictions hold, let's just all admit that the entire wrestling world has been Roman's for the last 3 years now. And if he's going to go out, what way to go out but strong. And that performance he gave on Monday night in his promo back and forth with Cody Rhodes. Cody played his role well. As I mentioned earlier, Cody gave some of the best promos of his career over the last month or two. But this was all Roman. He owned that exchange right down to that brutal AEW dig on Cody not being able to get over in his own company. I mean, ouch. I acknowledge you, sir. Thank you for the last 3 years. Who knows? If I'm wrong and you're still champion at the end of this, you still deserve my performer of the week for everything you did on Monday night and everything you've done for the last 3 years. But if this is, as I said, it is likely to be, in my opinion, the end of the current Roman Reigns era before we maybe start another one. What a way to go out. I don't have any doubt in my mind that he will go out in a match in the same way he went out with this past week's promo, and that is on top. Performer of the week, Roman Reigns. Thank you, sir. And that brings us to the last thing on our big finish, and that is match of the week. And I know I have spent a lot of time talking WWE, and I know that Doug, if he were here and not trying to find Bray Wyatt, that he would be disappointed that we didn't talk a little more AEW. But AEW, when it's Mania week, what do? What is the best thing you can do if you're the number 2 company? And that is try to steal a little bit of the spotlight away from the big guys and at their biggest time of the year. And that one way to do so, let's put on free TV an interpromotional match that would really be a pay-per-view headliner anywhere and should have been a pay-per-view headliner for Triple Mania a couple of years ago. And let's make that a 5-star match, which it was. Vin Kingo versus Omega. I previewed it here last week and said in advance, I'm going to call it, this is going to be the match of the week. And it did not disappoint. If anything, it exceeded anyone's expectations. If you didn't know who Vin Kingo was before this match, you know now. And if you don't know who he is because you have not watched this match, you can go ahead and pause me and come back later and go watch that match now. If you watch one match this week, that is the one to do, to go back and view. Go see Dynamite and Vin Kingo versus Omega in a match that Dave Meltzer gave a very elusive 5 stars to. Not that we're just promoting that Meltzer is the be all end all, but he is one of the most preeminent wrestling journalists out there who does not give that 5-star away lightly. Regardless of what stars you would give it yourself, you definitely need to go out of your way to watch it. Speaking of going out of your way to watch it, fans, that is the end of tonight's Two Bros Wrestling Show and our WrestleMania preview, but it is only the beginning of WrestleMania week as we look ahead at the next 7 days and a lot of activity, not just in the wrestling world, but here covered from every angle on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. We are next with you on Thursday night when Doug hopefully will be back with us as we preview the WWE Hall of Fame class of 23. The night before the Hall of Fame airs, we are going to talk about all the inductees, the 3 we know, the few that we think might be added this week. Wherever we stand on Thursday night, we're going to go live at 8 o'clock here on Facebook. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube or on demand on Facebook, you can later tune in and see exactly what we think of this year's class and who's deserving and what our favorite moments are. And we would love to reminisce and talk with you all about the Hall of Fame class of 2023. That's when we join you next. That's on Thursday. And then the big weekend itself. It's been a while since we've been live after the pay-per-views, especially since so many of the pay-per-views have moved to Saturdays and we've kept our shows on Sundays. WrestleMania is special, and therefore we also are treating it as special, and we will be live not just once this weekend, but twice this weekend, both after the event on Saturday night with our review and then Sunday night with our review. So a lot of wrestling in store, a lot of Two Bros Wrestling Show action for you in store as well. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Thank you, fans, and we will see you next on Thursday night to talk Hall of Fame. Have a good week. See you then.